Good afternoon, Culz Paranormal fans. Today we're going to do an episode on the Phoenix Lights.
Of aliens?
A lot of believers out there on March 13th, 1997. Mysterious lights suddenly.
I think the Phoenix Lights was an actual craft, or the two sightings that happened, but the big one was definitely probably an extraterrestrial craft.
So the Phoenix Lights. You know, I believe these lights were just satellites. They look like sun reflecting off the solar panels. They might have, that would explain moving around and stuff. They're satellites. They move around. They have jets on them.
The Phoenix Lights was a UFO sighting that happened on March 13th, 1997. Even though it is named the Phoenix Lights, this was actually a pretty widespread sighting, encompassing the skies of Arizona, Nevada, and the Mexican state of Sonora. Now, there has been many normal causes that people play it off as, including flares, while others say this is the definitive proof of alien life. Now, we will get to the whole debate later, and being that me and Matt both agree with Sam in the part that we think it's probably extraterrestrial, we're going to skip to an interview with our investigator, Alan Hickson, who actually lived in Phoenix at the time and actually saw this event for himself. So real quick, here's his interview.
I was living outside of Phoenix back when I was a kid, and I was in Phoenix at the time of the Phoenix Lights. All I remember was, my dad was grilling, and he said, "Hey, come look at this," and walked outside, and sure enough, you could just see this big, kind of triangular shaped light pattern that was just sitting there. And that's what I think I remember the most about the Phoenix Lights thing was it wasn't something that just zoomed across and was easily misidentifiable as, maybe a ultralight or something like that. Because there were a lot of aircraft shows and a lot of air shows in the area because a lot of it was open desert at the time. And so it was very peculiar just to see the whole configuration of lights just kind of linger there and sit there for what felt like forever. It felt like it just sat there for almost the entire night. It obviously didn't, but that's kind of how it felt in the moment, just looking at it, just sitting there. And I don't know if many of you have seen the film Independence Day, but how the spaceship was real slow rolling kind of over everything. That was almost the way that whatever was attached to the Phoenix Lights or whatever comprised the Phoenix Lights, that's almost the way it acted. It was just a real slow rolling thing. Almost from the ground level was almost inconceivable that it was even moving. That's always something that stuck out to me was just how long it hung around. And most UFO sightings are a quick flash and they're gone. And that was definitely one that will always stay with me just as an odd experience to have gone through. So in the footage you can see, whatever the UFO is kind of lingering over the top of these mountains, just kind of coming over the crest of them there. And that was earlier on than when I had seen them myself. We were a little bit further down in the desert, the open desert area versus being right up in the foothills. So it was darker when I personally got to see the lights. So you couldn't see any shapes or anything. You could just see the rough shape that the actual lights themselves were making. I wish I would have got to see them in the day. Maybe it would have offered some kind of answer or explanation. And I'm sure we've all heard numerous theories about what the Phoenix Lights were. It could have been military aircraft or aliens or flares from the ground. And there's been so many theories over the years, but none of them have been really definitive from my point of view that, yes, that's what it was. I do think, personally, that there was a lot of these theories were there to kind of offer some kind of cover-up closure story to the whole event. Is that necessarily true? I have no idea, and I probably never will, but it is kind of always one of those things that's kind of fun to think about. Was it just flares from the ground level, and it just kind of, tricked all these people in this area, and it's still something that's talked about today? Or was it something from another planet that, maybe the government knew about and we weren't ready for, so they wrote it off as flares? Or maybe it was the government themselves testing out some new stealth technology, and something could have happened and the stealth didn't work properly that particular test flight. We'll probably never know, but it was a really exhilarating experience, which was fantastic.
Did you see any jets fly over towards that area after the sighting, or did you hear any kind of jets flying in that direction?
What was peculiar about that area is it did seem like it was the most air traffic we ever had out there. We were right in the middle of the desert, so there wasn't a lot of neighborhoods or people around. We were on several thousand acres where we were at the time, and the only aircraft that we saw on a regular basis out there were hot air balloons, and hot air balloons were easy to identify, especially in some of the videos. I could see if there was a hot air balloon in the dark, the flame, if they were all in some kind of arrangement, could give off that appearance. I don't recall any aircraft activity afterward personally, but it is fun to think about.
Did you watch the lights disappear, and how did they disappear?
I do recall watching them for several minutes, and they did kind of disappear. They just kind of moved over, because it was kind of coming from the back of where we were at, and they just kind of kept getting a little bit closer, a little bit closer, a little bit closer, and then they were gone. Like, they just kind of faded out, but it didn't look like they had traveled a long distance, like they faded out that way. It was almost like a battery had died, like they just kind of faded out relatively quickly. That's what I remember happening.
Lots of energy that you felt. Did it feel very almost electric, but not really electric? Very was something different within that night?
What was different that night that I recall, I don't remember feeling any kind of oddball energy outside of the fact that there was a big lack of animal activity. It seemed like a lot of wildlife was hunkered down. There were birds everywhere out there, and rabbits and coyotes were always going off all the time. And when this had happened, it seemed like all animal activity just kind of dropped off the map completely, which was, it gave it a very ominous feel, because it just felt like there was nothing else going on at that particular time.
To add to that, did you notice anything different within the sound of the environment? Did it go just quiet before they appeared, or you were
No, because I if I recall, I was kind of babysitting my brother while my dad was out cooking dinner, and he had called us out, and my mom grabbed my brother, and I walked out, my mom walked out, and we all had watched it at the same time outside. And I don't remember anything leading up to that was weird. And we were watching TV. There was no electrical interference or anything like that. It just felt like a normal day until we went outside and, kind of saw it, and then noticed the lack of animal activity. That was the really weird part for me, was the lack of animal activity, because there was always things going on in the environment in the desert out there.
Alright, so yes, we are checking out the Phoenix Lights for our 30th Culz review. This one is kind of special to the group. As you saw earlier, we interviewed one of our investigators, Alan, who you guys probably know from Abandoned Colorado, as well as some of our ghost hunting videos, who actually saw the event happen when he was out there in Phoenix. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that portion of the video with the interview with Alan. But we're here right now, the group of us, because we're going to debate and try to get to a consensus. There's 4 of us, so hopefully there's 3-1 or 4-0.
Right, and we all think they're satellites,
They are
right?
not satellites. So, as you can tell, Andrew thinks it is satellites. Andrew, can you
Satellites?
explain why you think it was satellites?
Because they have giant solar panels on them, and then when the sun hits it just right, they're kind of flickering on and off, and it looks like maybe a UFO, but it's a satellite. Because I mean, it's moving back and forth. They got jets. They go up and down. They go orbit. They do all sorts of stuff. Satellites.
I would put more stock into the flares, and
Or flares. They could be flares too.
I would say
That's very
there's a
possible.
better chance of them being flares than there is of them being satellites.
There is a better chance of both of them being what they are as opposed to aliens.
Yeah, actual.
There's a better
Actually
chance that
aliens.
they're actually real and both of you are wrong. So
I believe in this event. I'm just telling you. If I'd have put my stake in one of the it's not real
Conspiracies.
aliens, I would put it more in the fruit basket that is flares.
Okay, they're flares then. Let's call them flares.
No, but they're not flares. So that's
Good.
where we're at now.
could it have been the mile-high skydivers?
No.
I mean, one of
Well,
Well,
unfortunately not red.
remember though too though that the controversy a few years back in Denver, for the first
oh yeah,
time
you
they
remember
used
that,
them.
and then people were calling.
Yeah, people were like videoing it. I was at
Yep.
the Rockies game and everyone's like, oh, like literally our section was looking at the sky because these lights, similar to this, just moving around, and everyone's like, what the?
Skydivers?
And then the
So-
very next day, the news broke. Oh, if you saw weird lights over the skies of Denver, it was the night skydivers for the Broncos game.
I actually do remember that happening. It was a big thing out here.
So that
definitely
could be maybe
could.
a flare type thing, or
So the problem is maybe the second thing was flares or military crafts or some sort. So there is that first one, which was seen in Phoenix and Sedona and actually moved. And the path of its movement and stuff like that, I don't think would be skydivers. If it had just come down in Phoenix, stay there, dissipated, whatever.
So satellites.
No, that's too low to the ground for it to be a satellite, and they were red.
Wouldn't it-
Usually satellites reflecting off
Yeah,
the sun
but
are
satellites they can hover like 150 feet off the ground.
Well, and the
For-
video is
for-
really interesting too, because like it was 1, 2, 3, it was like a sequence almost.
Right, like
Almost.
satellites.
It's almost like maybe they have some cloaking device. Perhaps it was some teenagers stole their parents' UFO vehicle, whatever they call it up there. So they were cruising through the galaxy, ended up here, and accidentally bumped into the switch that turned off the cloaks, and man, they brought out a lot of trouble.
Bumped into. What are you spouting out about?
I don't know. I have to make some weird argument.
Satellites?
I don't think there's no way.
You know
it's a
what?
satellite.
Cut to this clip right here. Check this one out.
you see, not a satellite.
Yeah, definitely not a
No,
satellite.
whatever,
dude.
Not a satellite. Put it in perspective. Look at today's Starlink satellites. They do traveling
Yeah,
clusters.
SpaceX, all sort. There's hundreds of different companies out, thousands of
But
different
they're not.
companies out
They're
there with
not. They're
satellites.
still not that close. The Starlink ones are very interesting. People have spotted them and were worried that they might be UFOs. This was pretty recent, but it was the Starlink ones. But still, they're pretty far away compared to the Phoenix lights
How can you gauge how far away they are?
because they're super far.
Check out this analysis right now of how far they are.
Can't believe everything you see online.
It's not even analysis. That's just Sam's trailer for weekly abductions. All right, so let's get back on the topic here. All right, Sam. So you think it was an actual craft? Why do you believe that?
Just because of the fact that it was floating there, like if it was flares drop at a certain point. The fact that it was sitting still, just floating there. Satellites move. They don't just hover in one place. They're floating around in space. They're constantly moving. These things were staying perfectly still until they chose to move. And so the fact that if it was either flares or a satellite, the fact that they stayed still for so long in that one place, like, kind of disproves both of those, because most things move constantly. They don't just hover in one spot, and it was too close to the ground for it to be flares and the dead of nighttime, so you wouldn't even see the sun there. And satellites, when they do reflect off the sun, have a white glow to them, whereas these were bright red. Or not bright red, they were like slightly dimmed red. But they were red lights, so the flares could be more possible besides the fact that they were not hovering, and flares have a trail off of them where these were just perfect orbs.
Yeah, what do you say to that?
Alright. Well, as our xenologist, what kind of crafts would these be? Would they be Carillion battle cruisers, or...
I mean, don't really know that answer. Just because it was in the dark of night and you could only see the lights, you can see kind of a shape to it, but like that really doesn't give you much information on what kind of actual shape it could be.
So, would you believe that it's a threat to us? Do you think they're here just to study us, or what do you...
Maybe
do you
they were
think
on a
this
cruise.
kind of-
Maybe they were just joyriding through the galaxy.
Just chilling?
Just
Chilling,
chilling.
like check out Earth?
I mean, they didn't attack,
These,
right?
look
If
at
it
these,
was,
look
if
at
it
these
was,
morons. They don't even understand space travel yet.
yeah, I mean, if it was aliens, they didn't attack.
Well, if we were a threat when we've already been.
But
wiped
it
out.
could be just a survey team.
No, it probably was just seeing if we were ready for contact, because a lot of these beings are probably coming to either help us or hurt us, because there are both the yin and yang kind of extraterrestrials out there.
And what kind
So-
of terrestrials are out there, do you believe? Like I only know of these greys that they talk about all the time. What
You've
about
got greys, you've got reptilians, you got the Anunnakis. I think
What if the Greys are just people from the future?
it's possible.
South Park touched upon that one.
I mean, but also if you look at it, the way humans are evolving bigger heads. Now, if the sun gets brighter, or if something happens with the atmosphere, maybe they develop some complexion towards that.
So now we're going into evolution and stuff.
We are
like
going
that.
to evolution, yeah. Fossil frenzy.
So time travel and evolution, these are all possible theories as opposed to aliens.
Would you believe time
I don't
travel?
think-
They
I
would be
think-
considered aliens technically if it was
I-
time travel, because they're not from our time and they're not like the same
Right,
beings
And,
that-
and
I-
speaking of
I
time travel,
believe
could
in a
you go back?
I believe in a
Yeah.
multiverse. I do
Multiple
believe it.
dimensions?
Yes, I do believe if you're going back in time, you have a completely separate string that you're following across.
Well, can
and
you go
that's-
back in your time, but you can't come forward in your time?
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, you could come forward, but it's not going to be the same time. It'll be a whole different era.
This is because of the butterfly effect.
That's how I believe it.
Well, see, look at this. We have gotten lots of explanations. What are you most on board with at this point?
Flares now.
He's still on flares. All right, Matt, let's go to you. What you obviously said you believed. What makes you believe this was aliens?
Well, Sam touched on it a little bit. The fact that they were able to stay in one place for so long, the movement when they did move. There's just not that we know of, unless it was government type equipment. We don't have
It could be government.
the stuff like that out there, at least in our world that we know of, that moves the way it moved.
That they're willing to tell us.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's definitely something even Alan will admit that, well, he definitely doesn't think it's anything that they've explained. He doesn't put off that it might be some unknown government vehicle. It's possible. Since he's not here right now filming, figured I'd throw that in for him.
So not aliens, but government.
He didn't rule out it wasn't aliens either. Alright, so we'll go to Sam and Matt on this question. We were just in Roswell, New Mexico, about a year ago. How has going to Roswell maybe changed the way you look at the Phoenix Lights? Has it made you more secure in that idea that it is aliens?
Probably not. I mean, I've always had the belief that there's something else out there. I mean, if anything, it reassures your feelings, but I mean, it didn't enhance my feeling that, oh yeah, there's definitely something. I've always and truly still feel that there are far advanced beings out there that we've not experienced yet.
Yeah, it's
Someday.
It's like an episode of Star Trek. You know, when the first episode with Captain Picard, when he goes out into space, and all of a sudden he comes into contact with a being that is extremely intelligent, far more advanced than we are, and their maturity level and stuff like that, and it's just able to create things with their mind. And
I mean, but isn't it too, like, we are mathematically impossible to be alone in the universe.
yeah,
Like,
bees are mathematically impossible to fly.
No, that's actually a misconception.
Oh, is it now?
Yeah, it is.
I didn't know that.
But who's math?
I mean,
Who's math?
it's
No, there's definitely other life being out there, and that's 100%.
Yeah. I mean, at some point we'll touch more upon Roswell again. But speaking of Roswell, did that change your mind at all, or you're still, I mean, you were always set that these were aliens?
No, yeah, that hasn't really changed my mind. The only thing that made me feel in Roswell is that I'd like to go out there again and just camp out in the middle of the desert and see if I can see something. That's something that I wanted to do out there.
That would be fun. I mean, we should do that. Maybe we go do the Area 51 festival that they, I guess, do now.
Yeah, definitely need to hit post-pandemic though. More stuff open.
Yeah,
absolutely. But
you know,
Or
Area
open
51 is
open
not-
later too, not like
Not 3 o'clock.
shutting down at 3 where it's like, is anything?
We got there at 4 and
open?
we were like, is there anyone here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, well, McDonald's is open.
if we
and-
ever get really big, we should invest in like a telescope.
Alright, so I guess we've talked for a bit. I don't think we've actually made any headroom in any of our arguments. I actually don't know if we've argued with each other, actually.
No, not really.
Andrew kind of argued over there, argued over here. No one's actually
Why?
argued.
Am I the only one that's like that doesn't believe here?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, I'm the minority here.
I mean, you are our team skeptic, so this was to be expected.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I just need to argue some more.
I mean, did you change his mind?
Yeah.
Did you change your mind?
So,
I
Did
have.
you change your mind?
I'm a terrible debater.
Alright, so let's try this again, guys. On the count of 3, we're going to say, do we believe they were extraterrestrials? Possibly military craft, flares, time travelers? Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Extraterrestrials.
Players, time travelers, and maybe a little.
Are you trying to veto everybody with all your answers? Andrew's over here being like, you know what, don't listen to Matt. We're going to say time travelers there. Over here, we are going to say flares.
It's
And,
ET, motherfucker.
And then maybe some satellites.
ET.
Satellites.
Phone home, right? iSatellite
It's
would
real.
be like an iPhone.
They're satellites. Y'all know they're satellites.
There's no way. I
close to the
would.
ground.
I would put more stock
Far down
into.
close.
Y'all, okay, so y'all haven't proven me wrong, and I haven't proven you wrong.
All right, so we need you guys
I'm
to
gonna
help us.
continue to go. I'm gonna continue to go with satellites.
Why don't you go get another shot?
Yeah, we'll
Alright.
get a shot. All right, so since we haven't settled this and we don't have that perfect 4-0 rating we were looking for, help us settle this debate. Either prove the 3 of us wrong, or help prove Andrew right. So let us know in the comments below. What do you think it was? Aliens, flares, satellites, military,
Flares,
ET.
ET? Let us know in the comments below
ETBs.
who was right. Also, go check out our older video on the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot footage. And let us know there, what do you think it was? But if you want to see more Culz reviews, click the link over here in front of Andrew and Matt. If you want to see more of what we're doing here at Culz Paranormal, including a month's worth of Billy the Kid stuff, click the link over Sam's face. And don't forget to hit that like and give us a
Subscribe!
And switch that notification bell from personalized to all if you want to be notified on all of our videos.
And again, let us know. Aliens or something
Satellites.
human-made.
No satellites.
Flares.
No
Satellites.
Satellites. Flares.